disrespect my town again. Brennan Reece. Good to
Hi.
meet you.
Nice. I like that you've just started this interview by saying Perth's a town as well.
Perth is a town,
Is it not a city?
technically. Sure. Sure, man.
Fair. It's the
If you want-
Birmingham of Australia.
If you want to fucking split hairs, it's a city. But no, yeah, look, born and raised here myself. It's my interview now. It's a beautiful place. You've obviously come over all the way from Manchester, UK.
Yeah.
And you've just told me you're exclusively doing the Perth Fringe.
Just Perth.
Yeah.
That's
So,
all I want. I
You
just
know.
wanted Perth. I've been everywhere. This is the third time I've come into Perth though,
right.
but it's the shortest flight.
It is?
Yeah, but it depends which way around the world you go.
Of course, yeah.
But if you go the shorter way, it's like it knocks off like another 5 hours.
Of course, because you got to go all the way. Yes, I
Yeah, yeah.
see. Well, that's good to know. That's good to know we've got it over the East Coast coming from Manchester.
Yeah, that's its main draw. That and it's lovely weather.
That's
At
why we've got so
42
many
degrees.
mates. 42 degrees. You have, yes, you've been roasted. How are you holding up in the heat at the moment, man?
Do you know what? I've learned from my mistakes. I've been sunburnt here so many times that I've thought, like, oh, maybe start putting some sun cream on. Like
You got a
an
hat
adult.
on inside right
I've
now.
got a hat
You
on
can't
inside,
take any
yeah.
chances. Well, it's good to take you in visually. Good to meet you, man. Doing a bit of research on you. Actor, comedian, over 15 film and TV credits,
Yeah,
ranging
that's right,
over
isn't it?
drama, comedy, even voiceovering a video game. You're a wild man. Made me feel really bad about myself. But I want to know, take me back to the origin stories of Brennan Reece. What's the first time you see stand-up comedy? Is it TV? Is it your parents showed you? What was the first time you remember seeing stand-up?
Yeah, I remember like my dad had let me watch stuff that I shouldn't have been watching, like sitcoms like Bottom and like I remember like watching things like Ren and Stimpy, and I was like, I'm well too young to be watching this. And then my brother, who's 10 years older, would go and see stand-up, and he'd bring back like programs or like VHSs of things like Lee Evans, or I remember seeing, probably again so young, like 11 years old, watching like Eddie Murphy Raw and thinking, what's this? I didn't know. One, I didn't know it was a job. Two, I didn't know that like it was a thing that you could just do. So I just got hooked on the fact that people could just get up and muck about.
Yeah. And so you're about 11 years old. You're taking in Eddie Murphy Raw. Still holds up today. Nothing wrong with that there. And then how many years is this stewing? Is the seeds planted? How many years is this stewing around the mind before you eventually get up and do your first ever stand-up set?
So I don't do my first gig till I'm like 24. So what, like 13 years. But I never knew. I wasn't like I want to be a comedian. I want to do comedy, because again I didn't know you could do it as a job. So like I would learn like the routines and be a bit of like a class clown and a bit of a, in the UK you say like gobshite, which is like just like a show off. And then when I got to like 18, I went to my first ever gig, which was at a place called the Glee Club in Birmingham, and the lineup was insane for like just a regular night. So it was a New Zealand comic called Jared Christmas, who's great. Then Greg Davis, who hosts Taskmaster, he was the opener. Then Lloyd Langford, who lives over here now, was the middle act, and then Jim Owen was closing. And it was, you know, in a room not much bigger than this, and you think, oh my God, I was like, comedy's insane. And then the next day, I would look through like Time Out magazine to be like, where's the next comedy night? And I just went to like an open mic night. And I was like, comedy's dreadful. It's the worst thing I've
fall
ever
from
seen.
grace.
Yeah.
You tell me about, that open mic, because again, there's such a through line with a lot of comics that it's actually shit performances that inspired them early on. It's seeing someone up there bearing their soul with zero self-awareness, just tanking it beyond imagination, that they think, you know what, I can give this a red hot go. Was that an experience for you? Do you remember that open mic?
Yeah, I remember just watching it and just thinking, you're all bad. Not thinking I was good, but I was just like, how can everyone be bad? Even the person on last was bad. And you just because I'd watched so much comedy, it felt like people doing like comedy cosplay. It felt like it was everyone's Make-A-Wish.
And everyone was dying that night.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's great, man. So you said you kind of grown up with a bit of a culture of comedy, if you will. You're absorbing so much of it. But the first time you get on stage, how does it go for you?
Do you know what? It was good. So I decided I wanted to do it once. So I did a gong show. There's a comedy club called the Frog and Bucket. So there's one in Manchester, which has been like my mum and dad used to go quite a lot. So I knew of it. and then there was one about an hour outside of Manchester, and I was like, I'm going to do that one, because if it's rubbish, no one will ever see. And then I got there, and there was a guy who I used to live with at uni who was just there on a date. And he was like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I'm going to try comedy. And he looked more nervous than I did. And then I think because I was nervous, because I'd come from like a performing background anyway, I was able to be confident, and I spoke so fast that no one could like gong me off, really. And the stuff was bad. The stuff was weak stuff, but I presented it in such a way that I think they were like, well, it looks like comedy, it just doesn't sound like it. So I won my first gong show, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll sign up to another one. So that week, signed up to the one in Manchester where I'm from, won that one, and I was like, I might be brilliant. And then at the comedy store in Manchester, I have this big one where there's like 40 acts on, and people last like 3 seconds, 20 seconds. And then I won that one. I was like, I think I might be the greatest comedian that's ever lived. And then my fourth gig was in a snooker hall in like rural Lancashire, where I was dying that bad that they'd not even closed the snooker hall, so there was a curtain and there was snooker going on behind it. And I remember it being that quiet that I heard like a snooker ball brush against another snooker ball, and I thought, well, I'm not good at comedy.
That's amazing. So it was 4 gigs until the humbling gig came.
Yeah.
That's more than most, man.
Yeah, never done as well as those first 3 gigs.
Oh, yeah, of course. It's always the first 3 before you know how bad it can get. A snooker hall, though, I mean, there's not many.
Yeah, the guy who was running the gig had his own microphone. So he wasn't the MC, he was just the owner of the snooker hall. And he had a wireless mic, and he was sat at the back just heckling, but with a PA.
You're getting heckled by the owner.
Yeah, it was awful.
That's not a good gig. Oh, man, that's wild. But I want to circle back as well, because you mentioned that you're a performer. You had a performing background.
Yeah.
And you've done some acting. Similar experience to mine. Before you kind of made comedy a reality as a goal, as a job, what was the first thing you did in acting? Do you remember sort of like dipping your toe in that? Did you think that was the path?
Yeah, a little
to
bit.
making a career?
So I did my first like acting job when I was like 4. I was one of those little shits. So my brother was an actor. He's not died, he just doesn't do acting. And he, as I said, 10 years older. So he was in like a period drama, and then they needed someone to play him like 10 years younger in a flashback. And his agent went, well, they look the same. So that's how I got into it by accident. And then as a kid, popped up in little things, because I was just confident as a kid. And then went to drama school and did all that stuff. And then ended up in like musicals, which was not the plan, but I needed work. So I'd do like tours of musicals, and that was pretty cool. And then worked for a couple of years out of drama school. I was like, again, that blind confidence where I was like, because when you're at drama school, they go, there's 30 people in the year. One of you might be a professional actor. And they really build you up. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be that one. So for the first 2 years, I was like working. And then just stopped working. And I was like, oh, I need to find some things that I enjoy doing. So that's how I end up doing my first gig.
The snooker hall eventually came for you.
All with the bright lights of Rochdale Snooker Hall.
Yeah, wow. So 2 years, though, you hit the ground running. You're doing that. Now that you've worked in both, you still go back and forth, no doubt. How do you find the industries, how do you find they compare in terms of pursuing it as a craft? And I know that's a pretty complicated question, but do you have any feelings on that? Like pursuing a career in acting versus comedy?
So for me, I feel sorry for the actors. I don't even class myself as an actor anymore. I'm definitely more of a comedian because I do it every night. But there's so many brilliant people that act that there's no like circuit for acting. There's no monologue circuit. So if you just don't get the role, you're just at home. Whereas we can like go and do 5 minutes there, go and try a new bit, work up a show, do a tour. Whereas actors are only actors when someone says you can act, which is brutal. Absolutely. I think I would have been so unhappy if I carried on just pursuing that. And then luckily, through comedy, I've been able to sort of bridge the gap between the two where like I love doing this. I've done it for like over a decade now, and you just go like, oh, this is fun. Like I get to be on the other side of the world. And then if an acting job comes along, I'm like, cool, that's going to be all right.
It's inconsequential.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of a meritocracy in the comedy world.
Totally.
You can totally put...
Most of the time.
Most of the time. Of course,
yeah,
politics exists in everything, but no, that's great. Thank you for elaborating on that, man. It's an interesting one because I wanted to explore with you as well pre-show comedy routines, because you come from a performing background, so naturally there's a stage presence you bring, but was there anything that you like to do that you noticed that you would do pre-show to help you get ready to come on stage and perform?
I like to try and keep it as like normal as possible, because I think when say if you're on a big mixed bill, like doing like the Melbourne Gala or something like that, there's so many comedians around and you can see everyone not even psyching each other out. They're just like psyching themselves out, pacing. Everyone's silent. There's so much time. So I kind of like just chatting before the gig. Like if I'm backstage here, if it's a minute before, I'll just go by the side of the stage and just be quiet for a minute. But I think if you've got too much time to think,
Too much time to think. That's the think alarm.
That's the comedian shouldn't be thinking. It's like, no, he's a straight white male in a cap. There should be no thoughts. But I just think trying to keep it as normal as possible, because my style of comedy is chatty. I like to try and feel that community in the room. So I'll dip in and out of the crowd and I'll do material, but I'll try and find out about people in the audience. So I think stretching that skill backstage when you're just chatting normally probably helps. Or maybe I should start taking it a bit more serious and do some lunges.
No, do some lunges. No, it's interesting because you're feeding into your style. Whatever your style is, you're sort of naturally warming that up by chatting backstage. I suppose if you were more awkward, maybe you'd go in the corner, take a shit, stare into the darkness, into the void, and get ready to do your weird act, But
and some people really like to go over their bits again and again and again. But because I do stories from life, the stories kind of exist. So it's not like me trying to remember loads of puns. Because if I was doing loads of puns, I'd have to go in the corner and take a shit just to make myself feel better.
Corner and take a shit is always a fun pre-show routine. Listen, man, you come over to Perth. You're based in Manchester. You're a fierce, what would you call it? A Manchester... Mancunian.
Over here, they say Manchurian. I don't know why.
The Manchurian candidate. That's what we call you over here. But listen, there's a little comedy quiz that I've put together.
Oh, yeah?
14 questions. Incredibly racist. Incredibly Australian-based. Yeah. Welcome, mate. But I'm saying it's very Australian-centric. So I'm expecting you to not know a few of these answers, okay? But I want to run them through with you. Let's see how you do out of 14.
Great.
Let's give it a red-hot crack. Brennan Reece, your time starts now. Question number 1. A reference to a previous joke or theme later in the routine is called a what?
Callback.
Correct. Number 2. The final phrase or sentence of a joke or story providing the humour or crucial element is referred to as a what? The final phrase, the final line.
Punchline.
Punchline, correct. Question number 3. Who was the Australian-born comedian with Netflix specials such as Bear, High and Dry and Intolerant?
Hannah Gadsby. No, that's the only one I know that does that they're allowed to come out of Australia.
They're allowed to come out. That's
no,
great.
right, go on. Intolerant?
Bear, High and Dry and Intolerant. Another Australian comedian, very famous for using the word cunt.
Jim Jeffries.
Jim Jeffries,
who used to live in
correct.
Manchester.
He did?
That's where he got punched in the face and then got famous.
Thank you for blowing him up like that. Question number 4. A final and often strong joke to finish a comedy set is referred to as a what?
Closer.
A closer, correct. Question number 5. Name the city that hosts the world's largest art festival that runs annually, in which many comedians make their mark.
Melbourne.
Edinburgh, correct. Question number 6. Who often referred to as the father of Australian stand-up comedy, famous for his comedic characters, passed away earlier in 2023?
Barry Humphries.
See, that's the one you're not supposed to get, but you nailed it, sir. Sir Barry Humphries to you. Question number 7. Name the late Australian TV comedic icon that hosted the Logies 18 times and won the Gold Logie 4 times.
What's a Logie? Am I meant to know what?
Fair enough, dude.
Is it like an Oscar?
It's like an Australian Emmy, if you will.
Oh, okay. Say that question again.
Who hosted it 18 times? Who hosted it 18 times and won a Gold Logie 4 times?
Australian comedian.
Australian comedian icon, no longer with us.
Oh.
May he rest in peace.
What other ones have died?
He's got a moon face. This is where the racism comes in. I don't think you're going to get this.
I don't know who that is.
It's Bert Newton. Ever heard of him?
Never.
Yeah, we'll do some Googling after the show. Question number 8.
What a legend.
What slang term is used when a comedian is receiving no or negative response to their material?
Dying.
Dying. Bombing. Perfect. Question number 9.
Bombing?
Bombing.
Oh, bombing.
Bumming is also uncomfortable. Question number 9. What Australian comic won the main prize at Edinburgh Comedy Awards in 2022 for his comedy show simply titled Comedy Show?
Sam Campbell.
Sam Campbell. Question number 10. What Scottish stand-up comedian received his knighthood in 2017?
Scottish comedian. Billy Connolly.
Billy Connolly. Sir Billy Connolly to you. And number 11. What US stand-up comedian became a Hollywood film star with many on-screen collaborations with The Rock?
Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart. Question number 12. What Australian stand-up comedian and TV host had the catchphrase, "Say hi to your mum for me"?
I don't know.
It's Rob McManus.
I don't know who that is.
That's all right. Question number 13. Stand-up comedian turned actor Robin Williams won an Oscar for his best supporting actor in his 1997 performance of which film?
Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting, correct. And question number 14. A person interrupting a performance with comments and or questions is referred to as a what?
Cunt.
Correct. Some would say heckler, that's a trap. Listen, Brennan Reece, you nailed that, dude. Amazing.
Thanks.
Barry Humphries, you got it. You got a little bit of Googling to do, but you're officially an Australian citizen.
Do you want me to give you a fact?
Please.
So this watch here,
Yeah, go on.
is like the comedian's watch. Like
Casio.
Yeah, it's
reliable,
the black
waterproof.
Casio. Do you know if you press? Let me see if this works.
You're going to say when it comes up with Casio, right?
Oh, come on! You could have played the game. Oh, yours
There it
Yeah,
is.
that's the best bit about it.
I love it, man. But listen, I'm going to say thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you for educating me on the Casio. Thank you for coming to Perth and only Perth.
Only Perth here at the Comedy Lounge.
Where can people find you, man? On the socials, anywhere? Any shows coming up?
Yeah, I'm doing shows here. Well, not at the Comedy Lounge, but somewhere. The Terrarium. I don't know what that is. That'll be a thing. And then, just my Instagram is at Brennan Reece.
At Brennan Reece.
Sorted.
Thanks, man. Thanks for your time. Cheers, guys.